Wholeness and balanced vibrations to everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Esoteric Radio. Today is an awesome day. It's June the 17th, Sunday. Of course, it's 2012, and this segment of the panel, of course, is the 2012 show. Today's show is titled Secret Symbolism and the Keys of Time. And we have a really in-depth show to definitely take place today. Like, it's really one of those times for all of us that major clarity is sought, and many people are asking the big question, but not just asking the question, but feeling the feeling that is associated with wanting to really know the answers to those questions, because I think society has still offered a lot of answers. I mean, there's a lot of knowledge available, and it does offer answers if you dig deep enough. But in many cases, sometimes the answers that we get, we feel that we can't accept them, or there needs to be more to back those things up, into what they call corroborate those things. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be going through a trip, as we always do. We go basically through the universe and even into the universe, and we see the history of Earth while beginning to write a new story, because that is the ability that we have. And so what I'm going to do before I begin, as always, is I'm going to check inside the chat box, and it looks like everything is clear now. So we can go ahead and begin, and I will tell people that we do have now a clear copy of the show being uploaded. It may take a few days, but we do have a clear copy. Like last week's show is now available on www.reverbnation.com/Resistance Radio, and I'll go ahead and copy that link into the chat box also, and you can go there and you can actually get all of the recordings to the shows if you wanted to download them, or if you just wanted a widget that will play all of the shows, then you can go there and you can get that. And so there will be a clear copy of this show, so if for some reason we start to break up because of our connection, then still be ensured that you didn't miss anything. There will be a clear copy available. So as I said, what we've been doing is we've been delivering keys. Like for the last 3 weeks, really heavily, or at least the last 2 weeks, we've been delivering pretty much all of what you need to know to emancipate yourself from the system, to birth from this womb. And today I'm just going to give you another part of the story itself of what took place here on Earth. For many people, this helps them feel a lot better, because a lot of things begin to connect for them. And when those things connect, they also connect in the inside, because information is DNA, and thus if you get really good information, you can move junk DNA out of the way and put in or reinstall good DNA, and this allows you to begin to power up your system. I will tell you first, though, I think it's important to remind individuals that it is and has been illegal to activate humans. And so the stance that one takes when starting to give an individual knowledge does, in many cases, stand against the controllers of this reality. And the reason for that, because many people want to know, well, why is it so hard to get knowledge? I only need to cite the beginning of the Attainments, also called cities in the Hindu texts, but the abilities that we're talking about is knowing the past, present, and future. That is one of the attainments. Tolerance of heat, cold, and other dualities. Some people think, okay, that means I'm going to be able to jump into fire and it not burn me, and I'll be able to go into a freezer and not freeze. That may be, but the real knowledge is the dualities, the tolerance of dualities, from what they emit on you through energy. So someone can make you hot, like, oh man, this person's ran me hot, or there's a heat or an anger that comes with when you're very upset. Or someone can make you cold, like, I don't want to have anything to do with anyone anymore. I've seen enough. The news makes people cold. So you see, these are the dualities. And the fire and the ice in the physical form are just the symbols of the actual energies that are behind hot and cold. So one of the abilities is that you can tolerate dualities. Knowing the minds of others and so on. And the reason why I say so on is because there's more than just people. So you can learn and read the minds of animals and other entities and aliens, etc. So this is again the abilities. Checking the influence of fire, sun, water, and poison, and so on. Checking means being able to ingest these things in your system without them having an effect. And then the final attainment, remaining unconquered by others. Now, obviously, for the newsflash to hit everyone, the controllers don't want you to do anything on that list because it means no control. So this is just the simple explanation you need to give people when they ask you why. Why is this happening and why are they doing this? It's because your ability, for you to have ability and power, means they have no power over you. So let us begin. The reality is that there's religion and then there's spirituality. Because what I named to you in the Attainments is spirituality. It teaches you about power. Now, religion teaches you how to be powerless. You give up all of the responsibility and all of the duties and all of the energy and everything to a designated God, and then generally there's a name that accompanies that God. Here's a newsflash for everyone. Gods, or I just call in this text now the Most High, because if you really understand the terms, God comes from the Hebrew word Yod. Yod means 10. It means a dual God, also known as Deus, Dix, and many of those dualistic names that start with D's most of the time, the devil, etc. So, what you're really dealing with here is you have to understand that it's just as silly, and I'm just going to just bring this point up. It's just as silly to say that there is only one God as it is to say that there's even 7 gods. And this is a part of the dilemma that humanity is in. This is the ritual humanity is participating in. They have these days of the week, Monday, which is named after the moon, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and you can keep named after Venus, named after. So there becomes an evocation or ritual when even considering that today is Sunday. See what I mean? You're under the system then of 7. This is how it was designed. So what happens with this is that even if someone says, well, there's only 7 gods, they're still in violation, just as the one that said that there is only one God was in that violation. So what I'm here to talk to you about today is that one God entity, the one that is causing the huge crashing of the system, and how to remove or repair, because some people are able to remove things and some people just need to repair things. So to repair what is going on with the most hateful part or the most destructive part of our system, because what happened is remember in the Greek tales when they tell you that the gods end up becoming imprisoned in Tartarus, the Titan. Okay? What they're telling, and they were locked in prison, they're talking about basically the species of humanity. And the lock is their chakra. It's not so much as just locked in a dimension. How do you get locked in a dimension? Your chakra gets powered down. Then your third eye turns off. And then you can't see anything the way that it really is. You only see things the way you want to see them. So this is what happens when your system goes offline. So what we're talking about here is that we're talking about how this system was originally put together. Now, many individuals have already gained more chakras. So I won't say there's just 7 chakras, but we'll talk about an entire body of knowledge that's mathematically equivalent to the number 7. And this has to do with the Bible, and this has to do with every major religion in the world, except for 8. And a brief story of 8 is that all numbers, because they're still identifications, all numbers are subservient to the next number. So 2 rules over 1, 3 rules over 2, 4 rules over 3, 5 rules over 4. And when you understand esoteric knowledge, you'll actually be able to attach not only symbols, but also animal energies, Every single correspondence, even trees, to specific numbers. So you understand how they're all connected together, because everyone's trying to figure out now, how did I get into this? How am I connected to this? Because every time we have one of these stories about Nephilim or aliens or whatever you want to call them, the first thing that people do is they take a stance that it's like, great, now I get to find out who's causing the problem. But what they're still failing to realize is the universe looks at all of this as one family. It looks at it as one being. It doesn't look at it as separate. So from that standpoint, we are what we're talking about. So it becomes very important to take the knowledge, see what the knowledge can do for you and how it can expand you. But not begin to go into the hate in the baby mode of which is not adept at all. Not even being able to read something because you automatically see something that you don't like and then you close the book. But remember, you're not seeing things as they really are anyway. So this becomes like a sick person that needs to treat themselves. It's a whole nother standpoint. It's like you working on yourself from fourth dimension. Your mind is thinking to conceive, giving you help. If it needs to help something, that means what it needs to help is damaged. So this automatically shows us that there's a part of us that goes out. They call it a ram. And it stays out there. They call it an oversoul. And then it starts to assist you, the sick part of you. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about what part of this system is offline because it got locked and closed. Now, I will say that certain individuals learn how to turn certain centers on, and other individuals learn how to turn the whole thing on. And then when a person turns the whole thing on, they become Messiah. They become God. They become all of these things that they've recorded through history, although there's obviously an agenda to keep the number down of how many people have come to do miraculous things in this world. I think now the world has it pretty much down to 1 or 2. Like I say, Jesus came and he did this. There was more than just Jesus doing great things. There's many people that are even on this line doing great things. So why is it that the stories about people doing great things are the ones that are most suppressed? And of course, the answer to that is the answer to the beginning of the show once again. That was revealed at the beginning of the show. So what we're talking about is your senses. Because when you're innocent, it means you have no senses. That's what innocent means. And when you have no senses, then you don't judge. Everything is one constant. You're powered up like the baby. Pure like the baby. You have no senses. No chakra. No identification of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You see, so what happens here is we are seeing how a system is embedded within the children and within the adults during the cultivation of the time that they're spending in the matrix, not how they're beginning. And so this is the secret to when they say you have to turn into the inner child. You have to become the baby once more. They're saying basically you have to understand how to turn off the program at a certain point. Mainly, especially when you go to sleep. Learning how to turn off the program so you fly free from your body. So what we're talking about is that the baby has no senses. So when you get older, you start gaining these senses. I mean, you can call them sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch, the 5 senses, pentagram, etc. But in many cases, it's much, much deeper. You gain these senses from the experiences that you have. Notice how a child will lie. If the child knows that punishment is coming next, it will lie. So you say, did you eat that? Did you spill that on the floor? No. Okay, so the child's lying. So where does that inclination come from? It comes from the child knowing that there's going to be a punishment next. He remembers that. So that's why the world is full of liars. And even the being that controls this world, they call him the great liar, the liar. Because it knows, it anticipates the punishment coming next for what it did. Now I tell you is coming another system of how to treat children. And how to deal with children when they are just growing up. And how not to embed improperly. Because this is, they say, what was the population situation, or being able to have a baby was the forbidden knowledge. And in our time that we're living in, you have to realize now that God, the Most High, has no name. Because anything that has a name has been created. When I can create something and form and fashion it together, and many people in the world have done this, they've created something, formed and fashioned it together, and put it down and said, that's iPod. And this is the identification of a creator. When you say, my name is, okay, you're a creation. So if you identify with being a creation, then you also have a destruction. All creations have a destruction. If you say you have a beginning, you have an end. So, where the ineffable one sits, or doesn't do anything, because there's no words to describe what it does, where the ineffable one is in a space that doesn't have any identifications like that. And the ineffable one chooses to reveal itself to whoever it pleases. Meaning that anybody can all of a sudden come into the great knowledge of even the highest master theorian. Because the knowledge itself is not physical. It does not suffer death. It's a spirit. It's what created the spirits. So now, it's because it gave it just from itself. So now that we have identified what spirit is, what is the body? So I have all these people running around here talking about, okay, now we're monkeys. Oh my goodness. Okay, but what is the monkey then? Does not the monkey actually contain still the genes of reptiles? Yes. They tell you most subspecies still contain all genetics of some subspecies. There are amoeba with 20 million genes with all of the genes of every single subspecies here within them. So the monkey is not the answer. Because the soul is the answer. It's the only answer. That's why it's called the soul. For the fleshly bodies, these were the creations, and that's what you see on the pyramid walls. That's what you see with the composite beings, half man, half this. What you're seeing is the experimentation processes of infusing souls inside of bodies in order to do a trial and error process to come to what you have today now as the human. Because, just think about this. When the humans first got here, why did they have to till the earth? Who told them to till the earth? Who taught them how to till the earth? Because the Neanderthal didn't do it. Some people say, well, they naturally did it because that's how you would do it. If you need something to eat, then you would go and start to find something to eat. No. You have to think deeper. What is really happening? Neanderthal man did not till earth. So who is present teaching this stuff? And now you're going to get into the major answers to what's been going on here in reality. Because there's a biorhythmic connection that this species has with, what name am I going to give them today? I guess the most popular name would be angels. There are beings that have already crossed over, that are fully conscious, that have kin here. And so the biorhythm of the individual, the connection is already there. Nothing can sever the connection except for when the lines are clogged or there's no connectivity. And this is the same thing that you experience when the internet goes out or when you feel tired or whatever. It means that the energy source and the amount of energy going through it is having problems. If you notice in the world, countries are having currency problems. But we know that currency is tied to energy. Currency or money means energy. So this means they're having energy problems. So the real cure for economies, if they want to actually cure economies, is actually Kundalini. It's actually the energy system of the body. Because it creates abundance of the things that you need. Now, when it comes to food, let me explain how that works. All of nature has made itself available. So generally, when you start generating high levels of energy and prana, you are surrounded by nature. And why? Because nature is attracted to that, and it pulls that towards it. The entire reality, what they're trying to explain to you, has an orgasmic nature to it, meaning that if you carry more organic orgone energy in your body, then you attract abundance. But if you are a dead node, you basically radiate decay. So now we have all these individuals in the reality radiating decay. It's obvious. So let me answer the question for you of why that is exactly happening. Why there is seeming to be a premature birth going on here in the womb called the Matrix. And this is why. There was a promise to the United States military by a group of extraterrestrials that hail from Attainments, which is the pentagram, which is also Venus, that promised certain levels of technology for other things. And many people know that story already, so we'll fast forward if you don't see the deal that the president, the White House, Eisenhower, etc. made with the aliens, etc. But when did that technology get delivered? That technology was delivered also within another Venusian. Now, I've explained this on the last show. Not all Venusians are negative. There is a fifth column even amongst the Venusians, but people that have abided on Venus are here on Earth, just like there's people that have abided on Mars are here on Earth. One of them was Nikola Tesla. Now, one of the ways you know that if you're not really from an environment, but you actually incarnate into it, is you end up being allergic to everything. And it seems like basically the environment is attacking you. And this is the life that, if you read Nikola Tesla's his memoirs, this is the life that he lived. He was always alienated. And he was even visited by men that said they were from Venus. He did write that down too. So it's important to see how all this connects. Because devices such as HAARP, the photon cannon, all these different things were developed off of the technology introduced by Nikola Tesla, even though he had a very rough life here, according to the documentaries. That technology was taken into the hands of certain individuals and used to do certain things because that was the promise of the technology. But the reason why, because don't think that the United States was just naive and say, hey, we want technology, and didn't know how to specify what technology they wanted. You're dealing with the U.S. military. The knowledge that they wanted was how to preserve the planet from the normal cataclysm that always happens. Meteorites everywhere. Look at the ground. I have a couple meteorites here in the house. They say if a meteorite gets to the point where it actually breaks through all the spheres and then impacts, just the smallest amount, like a marble, is going to be horrible anyway. It's going to be like 1,000 millions of bullets. So as the ancients recorded it, the ancients said 7 mountains fell from the sky. There they go with that number again. And this caused the great flood. However, there were some people, because they had a biorhythmic connection to other beings, angels, or whatever they called them then, bodhisattvas, told them, hey, there's something coming your way that we can't stop, so just prepare yourself for it. And so thus, some were prepared when the sky started falling, for better lack of words. And so the stories remain preserved by those individuals. So there's a consistent showing that there's a wipeout of the species at some point. And this is why there's such a difficult problem with, they say they couldn't even interpret what was written on the walls in Egypt, which was only written 2,000 years ago. There was no writing originally on the walls in Egypt because the geometry was the message. It's Phi and the masters of the Brak. Like I was saying, it's the masters of the pyre inside, the fire inside. Per means fire, a cat. The cats were everywhere. Dan Winter calls them the lion people, the fertility component, female, feline, fifi. So that whole thing, these are the real engineers of the Matrix. They drop pyramids from the sky when they begin. And they crash and bore themselves into the earth. They basically are like they're phallic wedges into the earth. You see, so this is how real aliens come in and start to get business going, demanding certain species that are indigenous to the planet to till the planet and to work the planet and to harvest what the planet has to offer because it's now fertile. As they even call Costa Rica, the coast is rich. That's what Costa Rica means. Puerto Rico, the coast is pure. And so, or the port is beautiful. So what you're dealing with here is you're dealing with that same energy that always goes throughout the land and gathers different things and harvests things. That same energy is what originally arrived here to this planet. So this is why the impact or the collisions or the duality, it generates energy because there's always something that happens next. And what I'm here to tell you today is that you're what happens next. You are the result of two major energies coming into impact. And so that's why there's a lot of off balance. And I was even looking at this last night. I was sleeping on one of my sides versus the other. And I was noticing just how much more comfortable it is on one side rather than the other. And this is the same thing of why you use the right hand most of the time rather than the left hand. And so this is this natural imbalance, as it can be called, because you were born with it. But how does it take place? Impact. Impact causes natural imbalance within wheels. So here's another secret about the chakras. The exact orbits of the planets that are connected to each chakra, that is the exact orbital pattern of the actual chakra itself. So that's why all the chakras can actually fit into each other without colliding with each other. This is why there are so many planets in this orbit that we're on now in this universe, but none of them never collide with each other. Because that spiral in itself, that actual geometry, is the secret behind the whole thing. And this is what certain people have the knowledge of now. It's very important to realize, like fast forward the story, stop not giving credit or recognition where recognition is due. Certain people have the keys to the knowledge here. And now, because of the internet, it's funny to me because some people are trying to figure out, where the Messiah is. And I was just like, man, the computers seem to show up first. Like now, all of this information is got, the person can really get themselves to the level of a depth without having to deal with guruship. Meaning when you go to places like India and the guru's using simple magnetic rules, and the next thing you know, he's got pretty much everything that you have, even all your energy. So now we have a platform that we can actually learn from. We could take the knowledge, and you don't even have to interact. Like people can come on the resistance, get the knowledge, and I don't even have to know that they're there. So this is how you've been given a rope. I suggest now you take the rope. I'm starting to have this feeling with Earth that the emancipation process can happen at any time. When I look at all the deeper doctrines of ancient knowledge, what it's really saying is for any particular individual, you can go into the higher state of consciousness at any point in time. There was never a specific date. You just had to accomplish it. And the main reason behind this is that people are at different stages, and to force them into allness and all-knowingness without them being prepared for that is almost an atrocity within itself because of all of the stuff that's already happened to them in the Matrix. Meaning that something has to come and start to still explain to them everything that's going on so that they don't just go into a huge fear factor when they find out the beatitude or how many different beings and species and things that are actually exist in the universe. As I said before, is humanity even ready to live with another sentient life form? I saw this picture that was very interesting. This lady was walking down the sidewalk with a gentleman, and she was saying, I can't wait until the future and until the time that we have an opportunity to look at other beings and to be in contact with other species. And around her were all these animals. There was like a squirrel in the tree. There was a dog on the ground. But basically what I'm saying is that there's all these other energies around us, these other entities, and we don't even look at them because we say they're not sentient. So this is the demarcation between one species and another. So is humanity ready to deal with another sentient life form? And I'm now asking you, individually, because every time you try to put humanity in that picture, you can definitely say no. But I'm asking you individually, are you ready to deal with another sentient life form? So here we go. What we're talking about here is now upgrading human history. Like, first of all, there needs to be a huge dossier about what just recently happened. And I just have to quote this scripture. It's from the book of Jubilees. I guess the Queen had the Jubilee, so this is a good one. It says, Jubilees 24:12 says, "And we explained to Noah all the medicines of their diseases, together with their seductions, how he might heal them with herbs of the earth. And Noah wrote down all things in a book as we instructed him concerning every kind of medicine. Thus the evil spirits were precluded from hurting the sons of Noah." Okay, now that you're like out of the bubble, it's now easy to look at this stuff and see exactly what's going on. Noah gets basically a medicine book that tells him what all these plants do. Before you can ever be a local god, just a local god, you have to know what all of the plants do. Because the beings that created this matrix, they knew what everything did here. How many people do you know actually make something and they don't even know what it does? They just put it in there, put it in the encasing and soldering it together. And somebody said, "What did that do?" "I don't know. I just put it in there." No. These beings already knew, like they call it the ark. The ark itself is basically something that can unfold entire realities. It's containing the nucleus of life. This is why when I tell you got to know about what every tree here means, I mean you got to go around the world and try to study all the trees, although that may benefit you. But there is a core to the tree. There is a root to how all this is put together. There is a simple symbol of how all of this is put together. And when you come into full comprehension of that, that's when you get local God status. Okay, you still haven't done anything big in retrospect because you've only figured out the phi-based reality. You've only figured out the pentagram in all the local geometry, the hexagram, heptagons. You've only figured that out, but that's not the entire thing. And so this brings me to the reason of why we should stick together. Why in the resistance we have to become stronger at getting closer to each other and understanding what we all mean to each other. Because you see wicked men and women gathering together all the time to do wickedness, for better lack of words. When you get these people that their only common integer is they all hate the same thing. And they get together with their hate cluster and then they imagine that they're doing something. They want to occupy things. They want to destabilize the economy but not have a backup. Even spiritually, this is where it gets sick. Like, it's okay if you have a spiritual backup, you collapse the matrix, then spiritually you're straight on the other end. But because of the degradation of the soul, meaning because you're grinding the gears in this reality when you're not running efficient and you get wore down, this is called getting old, you have to repair your system back to perpetualness because there's an as above, so below nature with how your body and your soul is tied in together. Meaning that when you see ailments on the body, when you see the body aging, the soul has ailments and it's aging. It has shells, as they call them, shigadil, around the individual that you've gained during life because of something that you may not even know you've done. The most interesting part about all of this is that I was talking to a good friend of mine, Andre, yesterday, and I was explaining to him why they say that you can bend the rules. This is in these secret societies. They say you can bend the rules, but you can't break them. They don't mean that you can't break them because you can't be a rebel. They mean you can't break them because you can't break the universe. It's like you can bend the rules. So what is the rule of the universe? People don't even understand the laws of the universe. The laws of the universe say that if a person agrees to something and they actually agree to it by oath, pact, binding, or ritual, then that stands. So you have the jokers, the jesters, and the fools that use the laws and draconian laws to actually trick people into basically yoking themselves together. Put my right hand over my heart. I pledge in my allegiance to the flag with the legions of the pentagrams. You see, the rituals are already taking place. And this is when, like, I woke up when I was in the Matrix. I woke up and I was like, wait a minute. I think the problem is we're actually accusing these individuals of doing things that we're actually doing. And we've agreed to. That's the only way it will stand. See, when you're firmly grounded in truth, then you know how things come about. And then it starts this whole different level of knowledge, because things become so simple to you because you go back to the beginning. And then you walk it all the way through. And so that's what we're talking about today. So, of course, we're about 41 minutes into the show. And like I said, for those having sound issues or possibly having sound issues, there's a clear recording that's going to be available. That recording, let me check it. It is running now. So what we're going to do is, because we're about halfway through the show, we're going to go ahead and take a break. And then we're going to come back and we're going to answer some questions. We're going to talk about some of the new developments. I'm also going to give people an opportunity, again, ask your question, because it can really get answered. There's nothing about this particular dimension and many of the ones adjacent to it that I really can't tell you about. But because the story is so long, it's impossible to encase that story within 1 hour. Like I was telling someone the other day, I said, what if you were given 60 million years of information? How long would it take you to tell everyone that? Probably at least half of that time, especially if you're trying to do it in any type of detail. But do you really have 30 million years for me to tell you what happened for 60 million years step by step? No. All you have to do is find the core to this and then start pulling it apart from there. And that's also what we've done during this conversation. We went really deep. I've showed you on multiple levels how there has been an invader. There's an invasion in the mind, even, where the individual has been dethroned. And here's another thing, let me explain to you. What the 33 is really about is the 33rd octave. The 33rd octave would be exactly positioned where if you put your finger in that hole right there in your throat, that's the 33rd octave right there. And this means and they also know that because of the octave that corresponds to this particular vertebrae, that this is the exact frequency that people are on. And I guess that's why they use talking as their major level of communication. So in this 33rd octave, when you hit 34, that's the skull. And the dimensions of the skull and all the equipment inside of the skull, that's basically the higher world. So where everyone really is in their vertebrae still. They're not even in their throat sometimes. Sometimes they speak with another part even lower. But the reality is that they're not, it's a ladder that is the spine, but that's the 33 octaves. And then when you hit this 34th octave, you're in the skull now. And that's why there's so many organizations, not just Skull and Bones, that use the skull as their symbol, because what they're saying is that everything that the skull has and that the skull can do, we know about. And we're not talking about just death, because that's also what the skull can do. But we're talking about life. We're talking about truly living, where the pineal gland that opens up lights up the whole body because it knows truth. So this means truth is light. Truth gives light. So when you finally hear truth, it enlightens you. So this is why, like I said, all we have to do for a moment is go into the stance of wise men and women. Scratch our chins a little bit. Relax ourselves. There's a big part about this that you have to stay in the game, for better lack of words. Stay balanced enough. Remain stable during this transition. Still be able to blend in. Don't make it to where you're so crazy that if you hit public, it's crazy house right after that. And every time you go out, because you're like, I see this. These people are doing this. And then all of a sudden the police are there, and then you're screaming, let me go, you fascists. You see? Man, remain stable. Because all of that is what they want. It's another way of milking you. Now, here's also the secret behind the human body. It was created with holes. This is a problem because it means you're actually leaking energy. So if you look at the holes in your body, every single hole in your body has an excretion. Your ears have wax, your nose has snot, your mouth has spit, your booty has you know what, and your pee. You see, so every hole, your pores, sweat, so now you're excreting all of these fluids. So now you see what they're eating? They're eating excretion. And so the more that you can cultivate your excretions and keep your excretions clean and pure and not wasted, it's your seeds. So all of even your spit is a seed. Some people put the seeds in their mouth and they let the seeds soak up their saliva, and then they plant the seed. And then the plant grows up with their DNA in it. So this is what we're talking about. This is the essence of what's real. I'm here today to bring you that. Even though in a big way, sometimes I just sit back and I say, man, why me? But I guess you should do the same thing and probably do the same thing. Ask yourself, why you for a moment, but then go right into action to understand that I do have that thought myself. So I want to say wholeness and balance to everyone. We're going to take about a 5-minute break here. I'm going to go ahead and refresh myself. Then when we get back, we're going to take some calls. If you want to call in, the number is area code 347-996-5688. That's 347-996-5688. You can press the number 1. And that will allow me to see that you're in the queue, and then I can open up the line for you. I ask all individuals that before we open up the line, I'll announce your area code, but that you do turn your sound down, because that allows you to actually hear me and everything to come through clear. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a brief moment. Okay, we're forward. And I'm going to go ahead and get right into this. We have about 41 minutes left in the call. And I'm just going to go ahead and get to the first question from the chat room. Jehu asked, great question. He says, how important is it to have a third eye open during the transition in 2013? Will everyone have their third eye activated? If so, that will be some shocking moments, seeing other sentient life forms. And I think, that's what we're talking about during this conversation. But there's really two aspects to this. There's, in many cases, people who predict things, and they're always like, at a certain point, everyone's third eye will open in the transition. But I always would encourage someone to see, well, what about now? It's like someone telling you, for your delivery, you're going to have to wait 8 months. And I guess that's how a baby comes, though, or 9 months, that's how a baby comes. But in reality, if someone told us it was going to take us that long for something that we really wanted to be delivered to us, we would go through another shipper. So in that essence, I think what we should really, really look at here is that what is this stuff really? There's a large part of this that they're keeping us like children about. That's what the whole Saturnalian Santa Claus thing is really about. And the Father God, you remain in this premature child stage where when addressing what certain things do, you can't really see them for what they really are. So let's see what the third eye is really. The third eye emits a cornucopic field of convex, or there's another word, triangles, that basically overlay the matrix and allow you to see more of it allows you to basically see more of the depth of the matrix. Now, Microsoft or Mac has just released a new screen called the Retina screen. It has like the highest resolutions ever. So this would be like that kind of screen overlaid on the top of your eyes, to the point where all of what you're missing in between the spaces, as they call it, you can now see. So this does an entirely different thing, because even sunset looks like, oh my goodness, sunset looks like the glorious ceremony of all ceremonies. The clouds are there, the wind is there, the different tint in the sky. Never is it ever the same. It's always a different one. So with the third eye, it's really easy for you to go into an ecstatic relationship with the universe. So this is why. Now, the deeper knowledge about it is, because that will, of course, be telling everyone, well, go ahead and open your third eye. But, of course, you can't just open the third eye immediately, because you will still see things as imagine that they are. There's still something about us when looking into a matrix. What most adepts do is they only visualize a door and walk out of this matrix. But in the matrix, when you look at something, it could become whatever you want it to become. And this is what happens when people trip on acid and they do different things. Their mind has no anchor, so it's just rattling on almost like a dream. And they start to see things all weird and see basically what they're projecting. And so that's also, you have to understand the different stances with the third eye. Just because you have a third eye, well, all of them seem to all roll in conjunction with one another. Once you have access to something such as a third eye, you have access to other things that are running in conjunction to the third eye. So that's why the third eye is not the only component. So what I would say is that we should look at this stuff as what it really is. We should ask ourselves the question, are we ready to really expand? And then what is it going to take for us to be ready? But more than anything, it's all about the cleanse. All of the residue, or the mucoid plaque, is still resident within the body. That's the actual scenario. That is the strata, as I call it, still in your body of the situation. Just like the earth has in its strata, or in the layers of its firmament, it has everything that happened in layers. So you have the same thing. But because you are a sentient life form, you have the ability to remove that. This is where, when you become immovable like a stone, and that's another part of this conversation, but this conversation also got into things of that many beings as a last-ditch effort put themselves into crystals and stones because they knew that they could survive any flood. Fire beats water. You see? So what happens is that there were earlier solutions that many of the ancients came to as indigenous. Like, we're acting like these people weren't thinking about the big question themselves and having a lot more prana energy and a lot more clear air, because there was no real machines then, to really get to a level of figuring out the answer to that. So, of course, there were times where there was we found already higher ways or better ways to get into higher states of consciousness. So what third eye activation means for any individual is it means coming into full terms of how you really see things. Because some people, they can seem to care, but that's like program 2. And when you get all underneath the covers and you see, do they really care about you? Will they really help you? Will they really contribute to you? Will they really be there for you? Will they really sacrifice basically anything that they don't not need already? And this is the difference between, like, basically where if the energy is still locked up, basically the person will never give anything that they still need. It's like you can get their leftovers, you can get their hand-me-downs, but you can't get what they use. And that's what's actually changing. The opposite to that energy is 100% when the opposite of the energy is when we look at society and we see what our gift is, and then we give it to them. But because of our effort and who we really are, like the real superhuman type that we are, because that's just how we were designed. We have chakra centers, we have reason, we have all these different things. So that's superhuman already. So it's when we take that superhuman gift and we do something with it. Not just like be like a stone and just be there like I'm all powerful. And that's great. But what we're also dealing with here is there's children, even like 50-year-old children here in the matrix. And there needs to be more than one individual, i.e. a Christ, one individual that is going to give the knowledge of ascension to these individuals. And if they don't get it, they die. They think they die because, again, their God is Dios, which is also the name of God in Spanish. The Deuce God is the duality. Everything's still good and bad. There's a huge burning up of the energy as the yin and yang wheel spins, and then you burn out, and then that's it. And so what we're doing now is we're really practicing with humanity to not get tricked like that anymore. Meaning, understand how to conserve and really generate energy. So we're going to go ahead and open up the lines. I also want to let people know there's a situation going on now where we're able to get an extra 25% off of the internal cleansing products. So if for any individuals that were actually thinking about that, now is a good time to actually do that. That's not going to be available for us until like maybe 3 more days, but we're going to extend it for a week. But I would encourage people to just really think about the vibratory change in the body, and also what sometimes we can do without to get that. Like sometimes you could do without a pair of shoes to get a colon cleansing kit. I think the colon cleansing kit is like $40 right now. What I'm telling you is that I'm not here for people's money. What I'm here for is to give you the knowledge. That's why I've always been here. Like that's, everyone knows this has been 3 years. I've always been here. But you have to understand that through this you discover certain things, and then it becomes like perfect sense. And I'm telling you, if you didn't clean out your filters, you can't see things the way that they really are, or even begin to. And so thus the body has a hard time breaking the shell. It has a hard time. It's all vibration. People who have some of their chakras turned on, or they feel their chakra centers, what they generally feel is when they are like half asleep or about to go to sleep, they feel their body start to shake. But it may not, it feels like the body's shaking, but there's no physical shaking going on. So sometimes they even ask the person, if the person is there, they say, hey, you feel that? And the person's like, no, I don't feel anything. But they feel the shaking because it's just like a wobbly wheel. And it turns on, and then it starts to, according to your orbit, in your relationship with that energy, which they call planetary energy, then it pretty much governs how long that center runs. And if that center runs everything. And this is why we have to really get into understanding that we mastered the system already. Come out of Tartarus. There was a way to put all of your chronos, your clock pieces back together. That's even what the movie Hugo is about, the clock person. That's these humans with these chakra centers, or these wheels of time, as the Mayans called them, and losing the knowledge of how to keep that running perpetually. Or basically losing time. And that's what I really want people to see. If your clock doesn't run right, when it comes back to get checked, you're not on the right time. That happened a long time ago. Now you got people coming into the lapses in time, the matrices, into the smears of the reality. You have people coming into those and getting the individuals and the beings that are trapped there, and then pulling them and saying, hey, there's something else up here too. There's another big thing. Don't look at the glass half empty. The universe has not even began. And so this is where it again becomes a beginning for many individuals. You have to give yourself that ability. And that's why we sit and answer the what's, when's, where's, why's. And we answer all of that so that people can free themselves from not understanding why certain things are taking place. Because then you can unload the program. You're like, yeah, that construct's crazy. That pentagram cube inside the hexagram, heptagon, octagon, man, you really need to be up on your game before you deal with them. And like I'm telling you, those Enneagram boys, nobody sees them. So when that starts to become the jargon of even those kids on the street who want to speak the slang, as they call it, then we'll really have us something going on here in the Matrix about resurrection. Because what we're really, really dealing with is that also the ability that one has to sit and actually seek the higher self or oversoul in true intent to change the vibratory frequency of their body so that they can make the connection. That's really what we're talking about. Is the fake program or the cold ISIS $ program loaded? Because if it's loaded, then it becomes very difficult to put your heart into something. And because the heart is the engine, then the entire system starts to continue to collapse upon itself. They call it a heart attack. See, so, there's deeper levels to all of this stuff. So we're going to take the first caller from area code 214. Caller, we're going to open up the lines. And here we go. In Wholeness and Balance Vibration, thank you for calling into the 2012 show. Yes? Mm-hmm. Nice question. That actually leads us to the other part of this dossier that I have in front of me to inform everyone. What the 2012 show is the as above, so below analysis of the news, the real news. And that's how we would be able to determine real news, is that if there's some type of astrological correspondence also going on that is connected to that news. And so, for instance, I was going to bring the situation up that's happening in Egypt, and how there is basically a collapse of the democracy. And this is like the big thing. Of course, everyone saw it kick up in Egypt about 2 years ago, and then of course everyone turns off the channel. But I will say also in the physical matrix, if you watch LiveStation.com, that's www.livestation.com, and you click on Press TV. Someone may want to type that into the chat box so people have that, www.livestation.com, or the news link on the Resistance website. You can get real news from there because they're just on the ground. So then you can see actually what the people are doing, and that becomes like real news. And when you see the people destabilize, what you're dealing with is, first of all, the individuals that are living in Egypt are not Kemetans. So the democracy is demos. It means a group of demons, probably 7 of them. So what happens is that the people that live there have been under demos. But now Demus in the Egyptian pantheism is not ruling anymore. And what is coming is dictator, basically the soul Invictus, the god Ra on the throne itself. And this is where the passing of the throne, I guess, is going to be happening in the world, that there's going to be a passing into a different bloodline of who really controls everything. And so that's, of course, how the world turns. I think that was like a soap opera a while ago, As the World Turns, but that's really what you see in these continuous processions, that you see some coming out of power and some coming into power. Then you see the entire world caught up in the illusion of trying to decide what side they want to be on, and even getting to a point where they get binded in certain things where they end up having to go and even fight for a while. And so what's happening with us is that we're seeing all of this now. This one, I believe, now should let everyone know that there's something new being developed here on a major level, is because now we're able to sit back off of all this and see that we're doing all of this. This is what I was saying in the beginning of the show. Now we're able to see, okay, there's real news and there's fake news. Well, wait a minute, who told you that? So now we ask the next question, how do you get real news from fake news? Okay, there has to be an as above, so below nature to the news. And then you start dissecting. And then once you get on the train, as I call it, once you basically see where the energy is going, it's very difficult to get off track, because it's like clockwork. It's like you even know the next thing that's going to happen. And that's why all of the ones who understood that appeared like they were using magic to individuals who didn't understand it. But it was no different than if you didn't know anything about farming and you sat there and tried to plant a tomato and it didn't grow, and then this other guy comes and he blows on the seeds and he does a few things with the seeds, and then he plants them in the soil and then it grows into a tomato, and you really don't know that it's just because he knew that you can't plant seeds in the winter, and that's what you tried to do. So it's that kind of thing going on with the knowledge, and that's why this knowledge itself is the most precious, because once it's transferred to you, it can't be erased. Like once enough of it, of truth, that's the thing about truth. Truth can't be erased. And what truth eventually leads to is the big event. They call that contact. It's actually when you realize that you're not on the dimension alone, and that there's other dimensions. And there's no turning back from this, because you'll never be the same again. You can't step into any high vibratory frequency. I think if you look at the word war and you look at the word world, you'll see that there's a similarity between those two words, because even the word words has the word war in it. The planet is a conflicting planet, so you should automatically expect for that to happen. It's really I tell you this, it's still all about your currency. This is why there may be no bomb. There's enough, they can get enough energy from people anticipating the bomb to not even need to let off the bomb. Just the sheer amount of terror and fear that's caused the individual saying, oh man, I hope there's no bomb that goes off, for 2 or 3 months until the event is over, allows them to get the wedge that they need to get the individual's energy. That's why, like we were talking about with the Venus transit, there was a lot of cannibal stuff in the news. And of course, there's a huge relationship, as we talked about last show, between cannibal and Canaan. And so you see this happen in the news, and then you see the Venus planet go by and you're like, what's happening?
But you also still have to realize that if you choose to tune into the as below version, you're going to get the as below energy. You see what I mean? So if I choose to pay you in rocks versus diamonds, that's what we're talking about. There's a great thing, everything connects, but which one are you choosing to use? Because even when you can think it's negative, it's always can be used by you personally as something positive. Like if you think about it, like you see the dictatorship leaving, the dictatorship that's going on in Egypt, and then you can see there's a rising of another power. There's a coming of a throne, and that's why Jay-Z and all these guys, he's about to go ham. Ham is the tribe that's actually in Egypt right now. Of course, he does the Sun God video. You can see it all, the wave continuously moving, what they're doing, but you can also see, you know, kind of how it's playing out. Now, now this gives you the ability to know. So the best thing that you could do is inform people the proper way. And it just becomes now premature because there's always something going on in the world. Have you ever noticed? It becomes premature to just update them about, hey, this is what the newest thing. 2 bombs just went off in Florida. It was they had 2 concussion grenades go off there. And so how much are we tuning into that's happening now versus how much are we anticipating to happen? But then, like I said, you see the whole game, the whole gambit. And then you can choose to participate. If you want to warn the people, the easiest way is to get more people into activating their potential. Then they get the warning. They open up the animal instinct that allows them to avoid troubles. Not to mention, what are you doing at the Olympics anyway? You see what I mean? It's like, it's time for us to get off the planet, and these people are still watching men play with their balls. This is it. Like, it's always happening here like this. So there's people who are like paying attention to that, and then now it's time to be like, look, man, you wake up. Like, if you really think about it, if a person is to stay in this kind of state, then they're definitely asleep. So who do you become when you actually are able to allow them to see it? It's like this is what is now like the position that's available. It's like they're throwing people in, but are they staging things for World War III? Well, they need a boost for the economy. I think that what's been happening is that there's an extreme gathering of gold, because everyone still realizes this is not about real physical money. This is really about gold. And I'll show you just like the key to all of this news right now. The key to all this news is that if you notice that the God in the Bible sends this tribe that is chosen out to pretty much sequester all the gold from everyone. The Egyptians, they plundered Africa, they plundered everything for what? The gold. So why is Enlil, who's the God of the Old Testament, why is Enlil so interested in gold, and what are they doing with gold? So I guess this gets everyone to like the point of what is going on really in the news is this basically the golden rule still, like the energy that the gold holds gives the individual rulership over earth, because it is the physical correspondence of the soul itself. So it's interesting, just like I said, to watch how, and it's recyclable. That's why they say, you know what, listen to this. And this, I'm glad you also brought this point up, because it brings out a big secret. Listen to this. The reason why the gold, they say that the same amount of gold that has been here in the beginning is still here now. Well, how could that be if individuals like the pharaohs were making it out of monatomic gold and eating it? What happened? But they still say in the ancient books, the gold is still here. It's because gold is recyclable and comes from the sky. And this is how they just recently proved it. And Drumvala Melchizedek just bought this forward, and I'm sure it was like squeezing blood from a turnip, but he bought this forward, that now what they've done is they're making the monatomic gold out of quartz crystal. Now, we know the earth is abundant in quartz crystal, but what they've discovered is that the quartz crystal is actually gold. So what I'm telling you is that gold on this planet, or souls, recycle. And this is where we're used because we have ability to take it through its process. It's like, and that's the same thing like our mothers. They took us through this process in their womb and then produced the end product. So that's what your watching says. So hopefully that gives you, enough insight. And then they did source those links in the chat box if you want to check those out. Is there anything else that you did need to have answered? Okay. Well, all you really have to do is you can contact me through the Resistance site, and then we could do something like a postal money order or something of that nature, which is pretty easy to acquire. But I have no problem with accommodating you that way. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and take the next caller. Caller from area code 202. You are on the 2012 show. Oh man, I'm doing excellent.
Into this whole pep syndrome, right? And this ring of power is supposed to be mesmerized. But there's a shot in this movie where the guy goes to pick up, Elizabeth Shaw goes to pick up the ring, and it's a back shot. So you see three characters engraved inside of that ring. Now, I know it's not a physical thing. So with language being able to carry the essence of a thing and the significance of following this ring of power, where am I headed with that kind of, I'm getting these flashes, but what am I looking for?
Well, I mean, it's really all symbolic, and it just has
Right.
several as above, so below natures. But again, language is the cable or cabal, and so the first letter of the language is supposed to connect the last letter of the language, and when you connect that, it makes a symbol of the Ouroboros, or basically a wheel where the language is eating itself. So this is also why language becomes the vehicle for, it's like combustion within itself. It's the power. It takes power to push out sound. And so this is, when you're talking about rings of power, it means languages. And that's also extraterrestrial languages, but it also comes into core vibration, because I would assume that the Lord of the Rings would just have the vibratory frequencies of the planets that are basically like intoning sounds that they make to open up gates. And so this allows you to just basically pass through the worlds. And so that symbol, because it's funny because we have to see everything now as the symbol or two-dimensional figuration. A lot of people will show it to us that way. So the symbol of just rings, keys, and even skulls means like gate walkers. Or I just now call them professional reincarnators. Like, this is a real term. I didn't coin it myself. It was the ancient term. It's a professional reincarnator, basically, when it comes into English. But this is basically those yogis and individuals that knew. Now, here's a snippet of professional reincarnation. The Tibetan Buddhists and the Lamas, because the Lama child is to choose the toys that it had from its previous life out of like thousands of toys. And if it knew which one, then they knew it had come back. And then they were responsible for protecting it until it reaches the age of full knowing. Because as a child, you still are like a baby on baby faculties. But once you reach the age of full knowing, it's like you're back again. You see what I mean? And so this is also why you had groups of people that always protect their children, because they knew that their basically ancestor was going to come back through those children. And so this is you can see that this matrix that we're living in is so it's depressed. It's like blocks compared to how rich the real story of what is still taking place is that's happening to us. It's like we're not seeing things as they really are anymore. We're using blocks to how
one thing that
we
tells
see
me, because
things.
it's all a book of Jewish fairy tale, and one thing I've noticed, it seems that they never taught their children to not be prudent in this world. They never taught them to think about like pie in the sky, right? And then there's a scene in Prometheus where she asked the black man, well, you must care about, no, you just drive the ship. Yeah, that's right, you just drive the ship. Well, you must care about something. What do you care about? So I took that in. I said, well, what do I care about? And I thought I care about everything. But to be relegated to a role where you just drive the ship is what I want to end. I will in that. So.
Well, like I said, brother, the journey is expansive. Driving the ship is definitely what we're here to do. I think we all need to grab the controls and wake up. Like, the thing has not only been on autopilot, but crash landed. There's a husk around it. Like they show all of this in the media, but again, I think that people should just learn to be mentally stronger, because when you can accept that, you could break that. That's how the two works together. But if you don't, because of where we're at on this planet now, if you don't know about certain things, that can hurt you. That's why they say what you don't know can't hurt you. Man, are you kidding? Like what you don't know, run around here dumb if you want to. You see? So there's degrees of that. But so what is the highest degree? To a state where there's nothing that you can't speak on. There's no intelligent topic that you cannot speak intelligently on. And that would be just a local God. So, do you have any more questions, brother?
I don't want to be a local God, but I hear you when you say it, and I receive it. I'm also seeing the practicality of like animals, and like the wisdom of the elephant is making itself known to me now. How significant is the elephant?
Well,
is there anything there? Should I just take it for what it's worth and keep it moving?
Well, I mean, I think elephant is one of the major animals that begin with the name El. El is a god. So obviously, when the souls were placed into the animal bodies, in the continuous cultivation, because we're talking about something that still had to run the courses of time. It's like when the seeds were dropped. This is interesting. Imagine what these beings can do. They can drop a seed, then jump into a time machine, and then come back out when the seed is grown. So what we're dealing with is that, but every time something is created, it runs this cycle. So when the elephants were created, massive souls, massive brains, mass itself, then those spirits are resident. This is like what I said, is the animals are holding a great deal of the vibratory frequency. They believe this is real too. People don't think about this. Like the animals think this is real too. So what does it mean when 5,000 bees believe that the area that they're at exists? It means something. It means they project the field of existence too. And that's why there's a buzzing with the insects. And they hold vibratory frequencies and they hold matrices together too. And this is also how matrices stay together. It's organic technology is what we're dealing with, the individuals that did put this thing into play, kinfolks basically. And now it's getting to the point where we have to understand, also because of preventing, and this is one of the major things that we have to understand, preventing the normal birthing of this planet, which I guess we all go out in the light, and then we all see the next level like our ancestors did. They are preventing that. They're actually keeping the matrix from receiving light. So if the womb never receives light, then it's basically in darkness and in mold. Then it starts to get hard and cold. That's the placenta gets hard and cold after 9 months. So these are the things that we can see, and this is why the knowledge was written within us. And that's why there's never been any explanation that said, the knowledge was taken. No. You were taken. And because they got a movie called Taken. But the thing is that this is where there's the hijacking of the mind. And this is psychological warfare, these kind of things. So that's when you understand that, okay, I'm a victim of this. Now, this is where the oversoul steps in, because the oversoul says, well, wait a minute, I'm a victim of this. I'm reading about what's happening to me, and then it starts to program from another one of itself. It's like, okay, I can't use this as a controller point anymore. This one's corrupt. Let me go back to the original copy, get the diagrams, and then return it back to the corrupt version and wake up all subsequent selves. Then this world will be so slow, it's like slow-mo. It's like what you were seeing in Megamind, where the other guy, he said, I had a chance to see everything that happened. I was going so fast, and then when they show him, everything is moving in super slow-mo, and he's just dipping through it, and people don't even know that he's there. The thing is that also identification. When people can come and talk to you and see you all the time, that's one thing. But when you have individuals that they live in castles out in the Black Forest out there, and you never see them, and they never leave the castle, so where are they at? And that's where we start to understand the vastness of the world that we're living in, and understand also that there was a cutting, and this is what they're saying, like the secret to, and we've got 8 minutes left, the secret to the end of the masonry is that the king, Hiram Abiff, was killed. What they're talking about is that, because in their terms, Hiram Abiff is the good God. The good God was killed. Now, what they're saying is that the idea of a good God is completely dead on this dimension, because if there was a real good God in this dimension, none of this stuff would be going on. So it's just basically a confirmation. So what they're saying is that there was a cutting off of the bloodline that happened in Egypt when the Hyksos kings removed the pharaohs from the throne, because the pharaohs treated still their people like children. Like everyone had their lineage, everyone followed the custom. It was like everyone did it. So some people say that's for better or for worse. I'm just telling you the story. It was like the king was kin. So you knew your connection with him, and that's why everyone looked alike, because it was constant. It wasn't called interbreeding then. It wasn't foreign for a cousin to end up becoming your wife. Well, how do you think the entire Indian population in many places it looked exactly the same? These are sisters and brothers. So it didn't become until the westernized culture started coming in and saying, oh, that's gross. And then now I guess we look at it as that way. And then now we've made the next move. Okay, so the next move is that it was now then decreed that we should interbreed and we should not mix with brothers and sisters, but go abroad and mix with other tribes and other people and keep the DNA going. So this is the command also that's given from the same people that put man in the animal body in the first place. Of course it wants to crossbreed and it wants to keep the indigenous in certain colonies and regions. And this is where, again, the archons, or those who guard the regions, come into place, because in many regions, they're landlocked. They can't really get out of there. They can't get a passport. If someone from the Philippines and Cambodia wants to come to the United States, yeah, okay. There are several energies blocking him from doing that. So when we see them from what they really are, you see that's why Kundalini breaks these kind of bindings. And in the U.S., they have people even believing that kind of stuff doesn't exist. At least most of these cultures still understand that there is a kind of spiritual relationship to things holding you back. It doesn't mean that they have the exact truth of how to get themselves released, but at least they're one step higher, for better lack of words, than people who haven't even come to the full realization of that, and then imagining that not coming to the full realization of that is the best way to be. See, that's the next level. See, because now they say, oh, don't even worry about it. It won't affect you. Like if you don't worry about all the doomsday and what's happening, your soul's pure, you're pure light. When you leave here, you'll go somewhere. Whoa, go where? Where's there for you to go? Like, you should know where to go within. You see, it's a trick. That's why they're jesters and jokers. They do nothing but tricks. And so when people get tired of being tricked, that's when they start to actually become awake. And it's really great. And so that's why the jester has this role too. It wakes people up, because after being tricked, when someone fools you a couple times, you're like, okay, second time, shame on me, or whatever they call it. Now, this is not happening anymore, because I'm an individual being. Mother, father, sister, brother, whatever, they're still me. If I cannot wake them up, and if I can't wake myself up, how do I expect to wake them up? Let me figure out what waking up really is. And then that's where we begin. And so I definitely want to say thank you, brother. I'm going to go ahead and take another call for calling in. You always definitely stimulate that the most powerful levels of the conversation. So I do appreciate that. And wholeness, I'll definitely be talking to you on the resistance site. And okay, I'm going to go ahead and open up the line for area code 253. Caller, you're on the 2012 show, Wholeness. Okay, I'm going to give that caller an opportunity. Okay, I'm going to give that caller an opportunity to know that we called in. I'm going to go ahead and take one more. Know that I opened up the line. I'm going to go ahead and take one more call so that we can go ahead and end this at 4 minutes, which is how much time we have left. Caller, area code 336. You're on the 2012 show, Wholeness.
High vibrations. This is Coach Mescal, resistant member Double O Cosmos.
Mr. Cosmos, how you doing today, brother?
Fantastic. One of my questions was about getting the crystals activated in the brain, and I was wondering, those who are like sterile or unable to have babies, would that be a deficiency in the crystals? Would that affect your ability to power up?
No, actually, it seems to be those are situations of the prostate. But actually, there's not even so much as the prostate, but there's a book, and I'll have to grab this for you, and I do have your email address, so I'll get it to you. But there's a book that basically explains the type of semen that male actually has in the lower areas of the prostate, where those secretions actually begin to basically rot. And then they start to cause basically somewhat of an infection, and then it's not an infection how we see it, but it's a change in the semen. And then this is what makes the semen impotent, because basically the organs that are down there are not doing what they're supposed to do because they're toxified.
One of the cleansing kits take control of that, will handle that?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the real deal. Like I said, I had an opportunity myself to finally get and do the complete cleanse. The allergies leave. This is another major thing. Like, you'll notice that you have a lot of allergic reactions. Like, sometimes I do different things in my body to make sure I can handle the environment. So every now and then I'll eat some cheese or some dairy that's cooked for some really good place, or that just to keep it in the system. I started noticing that after eating, even from the really good place of the farms, the dairy, I would still get a mucus buildup. And many people talk about that mucus buildup, but that mucus buildup is actually an allergy. That, as they show you in India, the milk itself has so much of this, of the prana and of the energy, of the chi, that, you know, but it's a different kind of cow. But the reality is that when we develop all these allergies, it's because our filters are actually clogged up. So yes, fixing the system, the lymphatic system, rejuvenating the digestive system, all of that is what the complete internal cleansing kit does. And so we do have about 90 more seconds left in the call, brother. I do want to make sure I do get to all your questions. Did you have anything else that you wanted to say, Mr. Cosmos?
No, Sevan, you took care of it right there. So the whole complete cleansing kit is not just one that handles the whole thing handles.
Exactly. It's all the parts of the body, all the filters.
All right.
Okay. I wanted to let everyone know that we're definitely available to assist. If you need assistance, if you need to basically understand where things are and what kind of information you need to be reading, the Resistance site is available for you. It's www.resistance2010.com, or for those who want to remember something easy, it's astroquest.com. And so, again, we welcome all new members. The community has definitely been growing, and we have much, much more to come. I want to say wholesome, balanced vibration to everyone, and thank you for also participating. It does make me who I am. Without you, I'm not sure how much of this I will really be able to pursue, but it's because of you that I'm actually able to really, really become present and really make myself available to continuously getting this knowledge and digging deeper into this knowledge despite what we discover. So I wanted to say again, wholeness and balance.